The morning rush at Sunshine Diner had finally died down, leaving only a few scattered customers nursing coffee cups and lingering over half-eaten breakfast plates. Rain pattered steadily against the windows, turning the early October day in Portland gloomy and gray. Mia Chen wiped down the counter with practiced efficiency, her movements quick but thorough after 3 years of waitressing at the modestly popular downtown establishment. At 25, Mia balanced her job at the diner with evening classes at Portland Community College, where she was slowly working toward a degree in social work. The flexible hours and decent tips made waitressing ideal for her situation, even if her boss, Vernon Hadley, was demanding and often callous. "Order up for table 7," called Hector from the kitchen, sliding a plate of pancakes and eggs onto the pass-through window. Mia grabbed the order and delivered it to an elderly couple who thanked her with warm smiles. On her way back to the counter, she noticed a familiar figure outside, huddled under the diner's awning, seeking shelter from the rain. It was Daniel, a homeless man in his 60s, who sometimes lingered near the diner. His thin jacket provided little protection against the increasingly cold autumn weather, and his gray beard was damp from the rain. Through the window, their eyes met briefly. Daniel nodded politely, but made no move to enter the diner. Mia had spoken with him several times over the past few months when she'd take her breaks outside. He was a Vietnam veteran who had fallen on hard times after his wife died, eventually losing his home to medical bills and grief. Unlike the story many assumed, his situation wasn't the result of addiction or laziness, just a series of devastating setbacks and a system that had failed him. Mia glanced at Vernon, who was in his office reviewing invoices, then at the clock. It was nearly 10:30 a.m., and soon they would be disposing of the remaining breakfast items that wouldn't keep until lunch. Making a quick decision, Mia filled a coffee mug and assembled a plate of scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast from the kitchen's excess. She slipped out the side door and approached Daniel. "Thought you might be hungry," she said, offering him the food. Daniel's weathered face creased with gratitude. "Miss Mia, you're too kind. Are you sure it's okay?" "It's just going to be thrown out anyway," she replied with a warm smile. "And nobody should go hungry when there's perfectly good food available." Daniel accepted the plate with dignified appreciation. "Thank you. You know, simple kindness like this, it restores my faith in humanity." Mia checked her watch. "I've got to get back inside, but stay dry, okay? The community center on 3rd Street is open today if you need somewhere warm." "I'll head there after this wonderful breakfast," Daniel assured her, already savoring his first bite of warm food. Mia returned to the diner, unaware that Vernon had witnessed the exchange through the office window. She had just resumed her position behind the counter when his sharp voice cut through the quiet murmur of the restaurant. "Mia, my office now." The few remaining customers glanced up, then quickly returned to their meals, sensing the tension. Mia wiped her hands on her apron and made her way to Vernon's cramped office at the back of the diner. Vernon Hadley was a heavy-set man in his 50s with thinning hair and perpetually flushed cheeks. He'd inherited the diner from his father 15 years ago and ran it with an eye solely toward profit, caring little for tradition or community. Approaches that had made the original Sunshine Diner a beloved local institution under the senior Hadley's management. "Close the door," Vernon instructed, his voice controlled but seething. When Mia complied, he continued, "Do you want to explain what you were just doing?" Mia straightened her shoulders. "I gave some leftover food to Daniel. It was going to be thrown out anyway." "That's not your decision to make," Vernon interrupted. "Those are diner resources, and you're stealing them." "Stealing?" Mia repeated incredulously. "It was going in the trash, Vernon. It doesn't cost you anything to let someone who's hungry have it instead." Vernon's face darkened. "It costs me plenty when you send the message that this is some kind of homeless shelter. I've told you before, we don't serve his kind here. They scare away paying customers." "His kind?" Mia echoed, disbelief coloring her voice. "He's a veteran who fell on hard times. He's never caused any problems." "I don't care if he's the ghost of Abraham Lincoln," Vernon snapped. "This is a business, not a charity, and since you can't seem to understand that distinction, you're fired." Mia blinked, the words not immediately registering. You're firing me for giving away food that was being thrown out? I'm firing you for theft of company property and for deliberately ignoring direct instructions about our policy on vagrants, Vernon replied coldly. Clear out your locker and collect your final check on Friday. For a moment, Mia stood frozen, processing the implications. Her rent was due next week, and her tuition payment for the upcoming semester wasn't far behind. Without this job, both were in jeopardy. Vernon, please, she began, her tone shifting from indignation to pragmatism. I've worked here for 3 years. I've never been late. I cover other people's shifts, and customers ask for me by name. Are you really going to throw that away over some eggs and bacon that were heading for the garbage? Vernon's expression remained unmoved. Rules are rules, Mia. If I make an exception for you, where does it end? Next thing you know, all my employees will be feeding every bum in Portland with my inventory. Mia took a deep breath, recognizing the futility of further argument. With quiet dignity, she removed her apron and name tag, placing them on Vernon's desk. You know, she said softly, your father used to keep a pot of soup going specifically for people who couldn't afford a meal. He called it community investment, said it always came back tenfold in goodwill. Vernon's jaw tightened. Don't presume to tell me about my father's business practices. He was a soft touch, and it's a miracle this place stayed afloat under his management. Now, if you're done with the lecture, you can see yourself out. Mia left the office with her head held high, despite the mixture of shock and anxiety churning inside her. She quickly gathered her few belongings from her locker, said quiet goodbyes to her bewildered coworkers, and stepped out into the rain without an umbrella, too distracted by her sudden unemployment to remember it. Daniel had finished his meal and was preparing to leave when he saw Mia exit the diner. Miss Mia? What's wrong? He asked, immediately noting her expression and the personal items clutched in her arms. Mia attempted a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Just a change in employment status, Daniel. Nothing for you to worry about. Understanding dawned on Daniel's weathered face. He fired you for feeding me? His voice filled with dismay. Oh, Miss Mia, you shouldn't have risked your job for me. I'd do it again in a heartbeat, Mia assured him. Some things are more important than following unjust rules. Daniel shook his head sadly. That's a fine sentiment, but it doesn't pay your bills. Here, he reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 crumpled dollar bills. It isn't much, but... No, Daniel, Mia gently refused. You keep that. I'll be okay. Even as she said it, she wasn't entirely sure it was true, but she couldn't bring herself to take money from someone who had so little. Daniel insisted, pressing the bills into her hand. It's not charity. It's belief in karma. Today you helped me, tomorrow someone will help you. That's how the universe works for good people. Mia reluctantly accepted the money, understanding that allowing Daniel this dignity was more important than her pride. Thank you. I should go now. Stay dry if you can. As Mia walked away, the rain soaking through her thin jacket, she tried to formulate a plan. She had some savings, but not enough to cover all her expenses for more than a month. She would need to find another job quickly, which would be challenging while maintaining her class schedule. Behind her, Daniel watched her departure with concern before heading toward the community center as promised. Neither of them noticed the motorcycle that pulled up to the diner just minutes after Mia had left, or the rider who entered the establishment with raindrops glistening in his dark hair. Inside Sunshine Diner, activity had returned to normal, though whispers about Mia's sudden termination circulated among the staff. Vernon had emerged from his office and taken over the register, greeting customers with a professional smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The motorcycle rider removed his helmet, revealing a face that, while partially obscured by several days' stubble and damp shoulder-length hair, might have been recognized by many as belonging to Keanu Reeves. In town for location scouting on an upcoming film, he had stopped by the diner on a recommendation from a local production assistant who had praised their classic American breakfast. Taking a seat at the counter, Keanu placed his helmet on the adjacent stool and picked up a menu. He went largely unnoticed, his casual appearance, worn jeans, boots, and a simple black jacket, allowing him to blend in despite his fame. It was a skill he had cultivated over years in the spotlight. the ability to move through the world with a kind of quiet anonymity when he chose to. "Coffee?" asked the server, approaching with a pot. "Please," Keanu replied with a polite nod, "and I'll take the Sunshine Special with eggs over easy." As the server jotted down his order, an elderly couple at a nearby table were preparing to leave. The woman paused by the counter, addressing Vernon directly. "We saw what you did," she said, her voice carrying quietly but clearly. "That young lady has waited on us every Thursday for 2 years. She remembers our order, asks about our grandchildren, and makes this old diner feel like home. And you fired her for a basic act of human kindness?" Vernon's smile tightened. "Ma'am, I understand your concern, but employee matters are internal business decisions." "Well, here's a customer business decision," the woman replied firmly. "We won't be returning to Sunshine Diner while you're in charge, and I suspect we won't be the only ones." She placed her payment on the counter and left with her husband, leaving Vernon flushed with anger and embarrassment. Keanu, who had been quietly observing the exchange, took a sip of his coffee. "Sounds like you've had some excitement this morning," he commented mildly to the server, who delivered his food a few minutes later. The server, Zoe, according to her name tag, glanced nervously at Vernon before responding in a hushed tone. "Mia got fired for giving some leftover breakfast to a homeless vet who hangs around here sometimes. Everyone's pretty upset about it. She was the heart of this place." Keanu nodded thoughtfully, absorbing this information as he began eating. The food was good, classic diner fare prepared with competence, if not passion. But there was a palpable tension in the establishment now, a sense of discord that hadn't been present when he first entered. As he ate, he observed Vernon at the register, noting the owner's dismissive treatment of staff and his performative politeness with customers. It reminded him of certain producers he'd encountered throughout his career, people for whom human connections were merely transactional, measured only by their financial benefit. When he'd finished his meal, Keanu approached the register to pay. Vernon, not recognizing him beneath the casual attire and rain-dampened appearance, processed his payment with mechanical efficiency. "How long has this diner been here?" Keanu asked conversationally. 42 years. Vernon replied, somewhat surprised by the question. "My father opened it in 1979. "It has good bones," Keanu observed. "You can feel the history." Vernon seemed momentarily pleased by what he perceived as a compliment. "Been in the family the whole time. I took over from my father 15 years ago." "What happened to the waitress?" Keanu asked, the seeming non sequitur catching Vernon off guard. "Excuse me?" "The waitress who was fired this morning," Keanu clarified. "I couldn't help overhearing." "Mia, was it?" Vernon's expression closed. "That's an internal staffing matter, sir." "Of course," Keanu nodded. "Just curious about the kind of place this is. A diner isn't just about the food. It's about the atmosphere, the community it creates." Something in his calm, measured tone made Vernon look more closely at him, recognition dawning slowly. "Wait, are you—" "Just someone who appreciates diners with heart," Keanu replied with a small smile, collecting his helmet. "Thanks for the breakfast." As he exited the diner, Keanu paused, considering. On impulse, he approached an older man who was collecting his newspaper from a nearby stand. "Excuse me," Keanu said, "you wouldn't happen to know which way the waitress went? The one who was just fired?" The man looked at him curiously before recognition widened his eyes. "Well, I'll be damned. You're just trying to right a wrong," Keanu interjected gently. "Did you see which way she went?" The man pointed down the street. "Toward the park. She's probably pretty far by now, though. Been about half an hour." "Thanks," Keanu replied, already moving toward his motorcycle. Meanwhile, Mia had reached a small neighborhood park, seeking shelter from the rain under a gazebo. The reality of her situation was beginning to sink in, and she pulled out her phone to start contacting other restaurants about potential openings. The screen illuminated with a text from her roommate. "Rent's going up next month. Landlord just told me, sorry." Mia closed her eyes briefly, the cascade of challenges threatening to overwhelm her. But she had weathered difficult times before. After allowing herself a moment of frustration, she straightened her shoulders and began composing emails to potential employers. She was so focused on her task that she didn't notice the motorcycle pull up nearby or the rider who approached the gazebo with purposeful steps. It wasn't until a quiet voice spoke that she looked up. "Excuse me, are you Mia?" Startled, Mia found herself looking at a tall man with rain-damp hair and kind eyes that seemed oddly familiar. "Yes," she replied cautiously. "Do I know you?" The man smiled, and something in that expression triggered recognition. Despite the casual clothes and the stubble, she suddenly realized she was looking at Keanu Reeves. Her confusion must have shown on her face because his smile widened slightly. "I'm Keanu," he said simply, as if he were any ordinary person introducing himself. "I just had breakfast at Sunshine Diner." "Oh," Mia responded, still processing the surreal situation. I don't work there anymore." "So I heard," Keanu replied, taking a seat on the bench opposite her. "Mind if I sit? I'd like to talk to you about that, actually." Still bewildered, Mia nodded. "Sure, but why would you care about a waitress getting fired?" "Because how we treat others matters," he answered with a straightforward sincerity that was disarming. "I overheard what happened. You gave food that was going to be thrown away to someone who was hungry, and you lost your job for it." Mia's surprise gave way to a flicker of suspicion. "Is this some kind of hidden camera show?" Keanu laughed softly. "No cameras. I'm in Portland scouting locations for a film project. The diner was recommended for breakfast, and I happened to arrive just after. Everything went down. Several customers were talking about it." "And you tracked me down because—" Mia left the question hanging, still trying to make sense of the situation. "Because what you did resonated with me," Keanu replied simply. "Standing up for what's right even when it costs you something, that's rare, and it shouldn't go unrecognized." Mia's expression softened. "It wasn't anything special. Daniel's a good person who's had some terrible luck. The food was going in the trash anyway. Anyone would have done the same." "But they didn't," Keanu pointed out gently. "You did. And from what I gathered, it wasn't the first time you'd shown kindness to those who needed it." Mia shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "It's just how my grandmother raised me. She always said that how we treat those who can offer us nothing in return reveals our true character." "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman," Keanu observed. "Listen, I have a proposition for you. I'm producing an independent film that will be shooting here in Portland for the next 3 months. We need someone to manage craft services, basically coordinating meals for the crew. It's temporary, but it pays well and could give you some breathing room to find your next step." Mia stared at him in disbelief. "You're offering me a job? You don't even know me." "I know enough," Keanu replied. "You have experience in food service, you clearly care about people, and you stand by your principles. Those are the qualities I look for in people I work with." For a moment, Mia was speechless. The unexpected turn of events, from fired to job offer in less than an hour, was difficult to process. "This is incredibly generous, but why would you do this for a stranger?" Keanu considered her question thoughtfully. "Because random acts of kindness shouldn't be punished. Because talent and integrity should be recognized and supported. And because sometimes the universe works through people to restore balance." His words reminded Mia of what Daniel had said earlier about karma, and she felt a strange sense of the pieces falling into place. "I have classes 3 evenings a week," she said, beginning to consider the possibility. "I'm studying social work at PCC. "We can work around your schedule," Keanu assured her. "Most filming happens during daylight hours anyway." Mia took a deep breath, weighing the unexpected opportunity. "I'd be honored to accept. Thank you." They discussed the details, when and where to report, compensation, responsibilities, with Keanu providing the contact information for the production coordinator who would handle the paperwork. As their conversation wound down, Mia's curiosity got the better of her. "Can I ask what you're going to do about Sunshine Diner? Are you going to say something to Vernon?" Keanu's expression was thoughtful. "I believe people reveal their true nature through their actions. Sometimes the most powerful statement is simply to redirect your own energy toward what you value." Before Mia could ask what he meant, her phone chimed with a text message. It was from Zoe at the diner. "You won't believe this. Keanu Reeves just bought out the diner for a private event tomorrow. Entire staff plus $100 tip each, but specifically said, Vernon not needed or welcome. Then he asked for directions to find you. What is happening?" Mia looked up from her phone to find Keanu watching her with a hint of amusement. "You rented out the entire diner?" she asked incredulously. "For a private crew meet and greet?" he confirmed. "It seemed like a good opportunity to introduce you to the team you'll be working with, and to make a point about values and community without directly confronting your former boss." Mia couldn't help but laugh. "That's actually brilliant. Vernon will be furious about being excluded, but there's nothing he can really do about it. Sometimes the most effective response to unkindness isn't confrontation, but creating something better alongside it," Keanu observed. "Which reminds me, there's someone else I'd like to include tomorrow, if you can help me find him." "Daniel," Mia said immediately, understanding his intention. Keanu nodded. "Him and any of his friends who might appreciate a good meal. I'd like to hear his story, and I suspect some of our production team might have opportunities for veterans with various skill sets." The rain had finally stopped, sunlight beginning to break through the clouds as they finished their conversation. Keanu had to leave for a meeting with location scouts, but they agreed to meet the following day at the diner. As Mia watched him walk back to his motorcycle, she felt a profound sense of possibilities opening before her. Not just the job opportunity, but the affirmation that kindness could resonate in unexpected ways. That evening, Mia found Daniel at the community center and extended the invitation for the following day. His initial disbelief gave way to cautious acceptance, especially when she explained that the host was interested in potentially connecting him with employment opportunities. "Miss Mia," Daniel said, his weathered face solemn, "did I not tell you about karma this morning? You do good, and good comes back to you." "You did," Mia acknowledged with a smile, "though I never expected it to come back quite so dramatically or so quickly." The next morning, Sunshine Diner was transformed. The entire production team for Keanu's film project had gathered there, filling every booth and table. The staff, having been informed they would each receive a generous tip in addition to the event fee, were providing enthusiastic service despite Vernon's conspicuous absence. When Mia arrived with Daniel and 3 other veterans from the community center, they were greeted with warmth and respect. Keanu, dressed simply as he had been the day before, made no grand entrance or speech. He simply welcomed everyone individually, taking time to hear their stories and connect people with similar interests or complementary skills. By the end of the event, Daniel had been introduced to the film's logistics coordinator, who happened to be a fellow Vietnam veteran and was looking for security personnel for the various shooting locations. 2 of the other veterans had similar promising connections, with real possibilities for employment rather than empty promises. As the gathering began to disperse, Zoe approached Mia with news. "Vernon's been calling nonstop, demanding to know what's happening at his diner. Hector told him it was a private event and he wasn't on the approved list." She grinned mischievously. "I think he's finally realizing that the diner is more than just his cash register." Mia smiled, but without malice. "Maybe this will be a wake-up call for him. His father built this place on community values, not just profit margins." Across the diner, Keanu was engaged in conversation with Hector, the head cook. Their discussion seemed intense but positive, with Hector nodding enthusiastically at whatever was being proposed. When Mia found a moment to thank Keanu for everything he had done, he simply shook his head. "You started this chain of events with a simple act of kindness. I just happened to be in a position to amplify it." "Still," Mia insisted, "what you've done for Daniel, for me, for everyone here, it's extraordinary." "What's extraordinary is how a small moment of human connection can ripple outward," Keanu replied thoughtfully. "Your choice to share food with Daniel, his choice to offer you what little money he had when you lost your job, my choice to follow that thread when I encountered it, none of these actions alone would have created today's outcome. It's the interconnection that matters." As the event concluded, one final surprise was revealed. Keanu had made arrangements with the diner's property owner, who was not Vernon, but rather the building's landlord, to establish a weekly program where excess food would be properly packaged and distributed to those in need through a local shelter, with the costs covered by an anonymous donation. The staff cheered at this announcement, many of them having felt the same discomfort Mia had experienced when forced to throw away good food while people went hungry outside their doors. In the weeks that followed, Mia excelled in her position with the film production, her natural organizational skills, and genuine care for people making her an invaluable part of the team. Daniel began working security at the film locations, his military background and attentive nature perfectly suited to the role. And Sunshine Diner, though still owned by Vernon, began a subtle transformation as staff quietly continued the practice of setting aside excess food for distribution, regardless of official policy. 1 month after the pivotal morning that had changed so many lives, Mia arrived at the production office to find a small package on her desk. Inside was a simple silver keychain with a sun charm and a note that read, "Sometimes it takes a moment of darkness to reveal where light is truly needed. Thank you for shining yours." Mia smiled, clipping the keychain to her bag as she prepared for another day of coordinating meals and managing logistics. The temporary position had already led to offers for similar work on future productions, creating a new career path she hadn't previously considered. That evening, as she walked to her class at PCC, she passed Sunshine Diner and noticed Vernon through the window, actually conversing with a customer, not the perfunctory interaction she had always observed, but what appeared to be a genuine conversation. Perhaps the events of the past month had initiated changes even there. As she continued on her way, Mia reflected on how a single decision, feeding a hungry man with food destined for the trash, had catalyzed such profound changes in so many lives, including her own. It wasn't about Keanu Reeves' celebrity or financial resources, though those had certainly expanded the impact. It was about the fundamental power of choosing kindness, even when it came with risk. Daniel had been right about karma, she thought, but it wasn't some mystical force that made good come back to good people. It was the natural outcome of a world where individual choices created patterns, where small acts of compassion inspired others to similar action, and where sometimes those ripples of kindness encountered someone with the power to amplify them into waves. The sun was setting over Portland, painting the sky in shades of gold that reminded Mia of the diner's name. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, new choices between expedience and compassion, between following rules and following conscience. And while she couldn't know what those choices would bring, she had learned the most important lesson, that in a world where so much seemed beyond individual control, the decision to act with kindness remained always within reach, and contained within it the power to transform not just a moment, but entire lives.